What's going on, guys, and welcome to my extremely delayed audio review of Friday Night SmackDown for September 17, 2021. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week. Usually it's weekend, but again, this is extremely delayed compared to when I usually do these reviews, which is early Saturday, late Saturday. It's Monday as I speak right now. This won't be up until later on in the afternoon on Monday. That's just because I was gone all weekend, had no time to record. I did watch the show. I reviewed the show in written form. So at the very least, my written reviews are usually usually up ideally within a day or so or later that night. But depending on how busy I am, it can be a day or two, sometimes Monday at the absolute latest. But my review's been up since Saturday, so you can always check it out there over on WrestleRant.com. But we're talking today, the September 17th, 2021 edition of SmackDown. Not a ton of thoughts on the show, but I thought it was better late than never after not breaking down SmackDown. What was it? The week I went to SummerSlam and the week that I went to All Out, when I was in Vegas and Chicago, respectively. I could not go every other week in doing SmackDown reviews, so I figured let's make it consistent again, go back to doing it weekly, and that's exactly what we're doing here, right here on the show today, talking about SmackDown from Friday. So, of all the shows to be delayed with a review of, this was probably one of the better ones in terms of, not one of the better shows, but in terms of not getting review up so soon, just because this really wasn't that eventful of an episode. SmackDown, as you guys probably know and would probably agree with me on, is a far more bearable show and enjoyable show for the most part than Raw. Raw was really the eventful show this week. We had a great U.S. title match, which I thought was a great U.S. title match, between Damian Priest and Jeff Hardy. Big E cashing in the Money in the Bank to become WWE Champion, following what I thought was a very good Bobby Lashley-Randy Orton match for the WWE Championship. SmackDown was solid. I thought it was a decent show this week. Below average by recent SmackDown standards. Did not even come close to topping the show or even matching the show from last week in Madison Square Garden. But I thought it was fine for what it was. The show really peaked early with the opening segment that saw the Bloodline in its entirety out in the ring. Roman Reigns addressing Brock Lesnar, who we now know will face at Crown Jewel next month, I believe on the 21st of October. And they have said, it's not going to be for the Universal Championship pending the results of Extreme Rules. I mean, Balor could very well win this coming Sunday at the pay-per-view. It's possible. I mean, it is possible, just considering he will be the Demon. He already lost once. They may not want to have him. They may not want to have him lose a second time, and I think it's going to be an Extreme Rules match. So they could have someone interfere, whether it be the Profits or Lesnar maybe showing up and costing Roman the belt. I don't know why Lesnar would want to show up and cost Roman the belt when he would want to go for the championship himself. That would make no fucking sense. But I severely doubt at this point in time that Roman Reigns is walking out of that pay-per-view on Sunday still the Universal Champion. But we know that match is happening. We found out here that it will be an Extreme Rules match at the pay-per-view on Sunday before he was interrupted by Big E, the new WWE Champion. Yes, Big E is still technically a SmackDown superstar. In our interview last week, check it out, cheap plug, he said as far as he's concerned, he's a Raw guy because you're not going to have two world champions on the same show. I think they should for right now, if only for the next couple of weeks. I would not automatically, start Raw tonight by saying, Big E's on Raw now. He will be on the show tonight, teaming with New Day. He is the WWE Champion. At least until the draft, being the WWE Champion should allow him to float between shows. That's my opinion. And then come the draft, you officially draft him to Raw. Now, I like the idea of him on SmackDown, but if I had to choose who goes to Raw as the WWE or the main world champion, Big E or Roman Reigns, it's got to be Big E. I think SmackDown is the Roman Reigns show. I love him on Fridays. Please do not move Roman Reigns. And also the Usos are the tag team champions. I mean, they could drop the belts before they move to Raw, and they're not the SmackDown tag team champions anymore. I don't want to see them do what they did last year where they switched the tag team champions and then just change the color of the belts, basically, which was fucking dumb, I thought, from a logical standpoint. But I think Big E should be officially drafted to Raw in the draft. I mean, I think just makes the most sense. You're wasting a big moment of the draft. Big E's on Raw now. It might be a foregone conclusion, but personally, I think that would be better to save that moment for the draft as opposed to starting Raw tonight by saying that Big E's officially a Raw superstar now, being the WWE Champion. But anyway, so Big E came out along with Finn Balor, leading to an impromptu tag team match between Big E and Balor against the Usos, which I believe they called a championship contenders match. Now, they're very inconsistent with this. They'll call some non-title matches championship contenders matches. Sometimes they'll call them, they won't even say that, they'll just be non-title matches. But then even if you beat the champions, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting a title shot. That's the weird thing. So I think the idea of a championship contenders match should be, and I think is, which it always typically isn't, because they did this with Tegan Nox and Shotzi. They won 2 championship contenders matches, or 3 actually, and they never got a fucking title shot, and we're getting a women's tag team title match tonight on Raw with Rhea and Nikki against Natalya and Tamina. Well, what the fuck about Tegan and Shotzi, though? That has not been addressed or, even acknowledged in recent weeks. But nonetheless, I don't know why they would call it that unless they plan to do Big E and Balor against the Usos again, this time for the tag titles. But again, they're defending against the Profits on Sunday. Maybe they'll do a tag title match this Friday on SmackDown, which makes no sense. Balor's already going for a world championship on Sunday. Despite all that, I thought this was a very good match. I didn't have a problem with the Usos losing. I typically don't like champions losing non-title matches, but they've already lost their last 2 matches on SmackDown by disqualification. To do it for a 3rd or 4th week in a row would be fucking lazy. To do it even 2 weeks in a row was lazy. 3 would just be overkill. So I didn't have a problem with that. Big E picked up the win. Balor hit his coup de grace finisher. Great visual. Good win for them. Big week for Big E, obviously. But I forgot to mention, he did face off with Roman Reigns, the 2 of them holding up their championships, obviously, as we found out on the show. It's going to be New Day in the Bloodline tonight on Raw in 6-man tag team action, which sounds awesome. And if you're not going to do that match on a bigger stage, which I'm slightly disappointed by, they want to get ratings, I get it. I mean, I don't really have as much of a problem with it, and I usually do. In this instance, a lot like Omega and Danielson on AEW this week, I don't have as much of a problem with it as I normally would. Because I think they need the ratings right now. It makes sense. It's not a completely random match. I mean, they did advertise it a few days out. And if it plants the seeds for Big E and Roman at Survivor Series, count me the fuck in, because that sounds great. I will mention this right up front. It happened later on in the show, but I don't want to forget about it. The Sonya Deville Naomi segment. Now, I don't think Naomi was even on SmackDown last week. They probably cut that segment too in the back. But for the last couple of weeks, Naomi has been backstage asking Sonya Deville for a match. And Sonya initially was like, I didn't even know you were on the show now. I don't remember trading for you or whatever. We haven't seen Naomi in a match in a few months now because she was originally teaming with Lana over on Raw. Lana got fired. Naomi was doing a few things on Raw. She was like teaming with Asuka for a few weeks, and then Asuka got hurt, so they were probably like, fuck it, let's put her on SmackDown. That in addition to the fact that, her husband's on SmackDown and they're on the road again, so it makes sense for them to be on the same show. I mean, I said that a fucking year ago, come the return of the road, they're going to have to be put on the same show, and they didn't want to wait until the draft. But I'm glad that Naomi is back. And she was begging for weeks, hey, where's my match? And she was being all nice about it. Sonya said, oh, I forgot you'd be here. I didn't have enough time on the show, blah, blah, blah. Naomi this week was fucking pissed. She got in Sonya's face, saying, I'm a former 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion. I've done this and that. I've been here a lot longer than you. I've accomplished a lot more than you. And still, for some reason, you have an issue with me. And I don't care what it is. But I want a match on the show. And if not, there's going to be consequences. So WWE came out a little bit later on social, and I think on SmackDown itself, saying that Naomi, I believe, was it suspended or fined? I think it was fined. Yeah, I think she was fined for insubordination by Sonya Deville. So I'm liking the storyline with these two. I'm glad we have a secondary storyline in the division that makes sense. I mean, we're probably getting Liv Morgan and Carmella at the pay-per-view. For what reason, I have no fucking clue. They really should have just put Zelina, Carmella, Liv Morgan, and Toni in there as a 4. I mean, then again, we literally just got that after SummerSlam and Bianca won. You would just be replacing Bianca with Toni, so maybe not, but I really don't care. I mean, I like Liv. Carmella's good too. I don't really give a fuck about another match between those two on the pay-per-view, and their feud hasn't really been all that consistent this summer. Liv and Sonya would have made more sense because remember, they were going at it going into Money in the Bank, and that led nowhere. Liv ultimately ended up in the match, but that bad blood between the two was never, it never culminated and never was paid off. So I guess they're kind of giving that storyline now to Naomi, and I like it. I think it's cool. We need more of this aggressive side of Naomi. I thought she came across great here, so hopefully we see more of her on the show going forward. We even see, she doesn't have to be a heel. Naomi was never a great heel a few years ago. The glow stuff, I know it's over and whatnot, but it's been so played out. She's been doing it for 5 years now. We got to move on from the glow stuff. She could still be a babyface, but we need this more, badass, serious Naomi that we got here. I thought that was great. Rick Boogs was back in one-on-one action, beating Robert Roode. Nothing really to this at all. Kind of a match, went about a minute or two. Boogs has looked impressive, but the fact they're giving him way more emphasis and attention than Nakamura himself is weird to me. Nakamura is defending the Intercontinental Championship next week against Apollo Crews. They announced that. Why, I don't know. I know Crews lost the belt to Nakamura a month or so ago, right before SummerSlam. But the thing is, though, it's like, what the fuck is Apollo Crews done? I mean, I know he challenged him, and I guess it was accepted. But what the fuck, from a storyline standpoint, it's almost as bad as Zelina and Carmella, has Apollo done to deserve another shot at that title? He has literally lost every match he's been involved in on TV for literally 3 months. He has not won a singles match on SmackDown since beating Kevin Owens, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, since beating Kevin Owens to retain the Intercontinental Championship 3.5 months ago. They're probably just doing it to get it over with. They'll probably ship Apollo back to Raw in the draft, or maybe probably not Nakamura. Honestly, I think Nakamura on Raw would be cool, because we've never had him on Raw before. He's been on SmackDown for 4.5 years. So that would be something new. Who's the U.S. champion right now? Damian Priest? Hey, honestly, I don't hate that idea. If you want to swap Priest and Nakamura in the draft, I don't hate that idea. I might honestly be all for that. We haven't had the Intercontinental title on Raw since, when was it last on Raw? Was it on 2019, right? Bobby and Finn were feuding over in 2019, and when did they switch shows? Balor went to SmackDown in 2019 as the Intercontinental Champion. And then I think Joe went to Raw as the United States Champion a few weeks after that. So yeah, they haven't been on their respective shows. Like, they haven't swapped brands, the mid-card titles, in 2.5 years. So I'd be fine with that. I'd be totally fine with that. Maybe keep Apollo on SmackDown. What the fuck you do with him, I don't know, but just an idea. Hey, if Apollo goes to Raw to chase Big E for the WWE title, no thanks, bro. No thanks. Happy Corbin, speaking of Kevin Owens, he was attacked on his way to the ring by Happy Corbin. I like the Happy Corbin stuff. Kevin Owens just comes across, and this has always been his demeanor to me, but he just comes across like he doesn't give a fuck. And I suppose they were supposed to have a match here. I don't know if it was Owens against him. I missed that, or if it was Owens and Corbin, but Corbin attacked him, prevented the match from happening, and that was it. So short, sweet, simple, straight to the point. Nothing much to this, but it paves the way for another match between the two in an upcoming episode of SmackDown, or maybe the pay-per-view. I said this in my written review, but how this isn't on the pay-per-view, but Carmella and Morgan is. I mean, listen, both feuds really don't mean much at all. But they've given more attention creatively to Owens and Corbin than they have, in my opinion, consistently, Carmella and Liv Morgan. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. Seth Rollins was on SmackDown addressing his actions against Edge. And what I didn't understand about this was that they were framing this as, Rollins explains his dastardly actions from SmackDown last week when he put Edge on the shelf and had him stretchered out of the arena, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I was there. Maybe I missed something. But what did Rollins do that was so dastardly? I mean, he has done far more dastardly things this year, and even on SmackDown recently against Cesaro, than whatever the fuck he did against Edge last week on the show. I mean, he literally, he used a low blow on him, but the rest of the match played out as any other match would, hitting the curb stomp. And the only thing that was different is that in storyline, and also in reality to a certain extent, Edge's neck is shot. And the story was that if he hits that move, Edge's career could be over. So I like that they're selling that. And I do enjoy that. But he didn't do anything overly dastardly. It wasn't like, he can't hit the move, otherwise he's going to die. Maybe don't have a fucking match. Like, Edge risked his health by being involved in the match, knowing there was a chance you could get hit with that move. And Rollins didn't do anything that I don't think anyone else would have done. I mean, it was a normal match, so it was a great match, but as far as the finish goes, it wasn't anything too evil. But he talked about that, and he said the, history or the issue between them isn't over, which I'm sure some people roll their eyes at, but I'm thinking to myself, listen, the first 2 matches these guys had were among the best WWE matches I've seen all year. I don't know if that's an indictment on the rest of the year in WWE from an in-ring standpoint or just how great the feud is, but I've loved the chemistry these two have had on SmackDown, SummerSlam, the promos, matches, everything. I've loved this feud. So if they want to do a third match, or even more accurately, because Rollins did bring up Beth Phoenix's name here, he referred to something Beth said on NXT this week, and I'm thinking, that's interesting. If he's mentioning Beth, and not that they haven't mentioned Edge and Beth on the show before, but maybe, as I said a week or two ago, could we be getting Edge and Beth against Becky and Rollins at WrestleMania? And there was a report this week, and again, reports are reports, don't believe everything you read, that indicated, I believe from WrestlingNews.co, maybe it was another source, I'm not sure, that indicated Edge is going to be off TV for a while. Probably write him out of storylines for the next couple of months, maybe Mania season, which seems very far away. For him to be gone for 6 months and he's not hurt or anything seems like a long time. I'd bring him back at like the Rumble. But hey, again, maybe that's the big Mania match, is that mixed tag team match. I think it's a good use of everyone involved. It gets Beth back in the ring one more time, and Becky's getting a team with her now husband, and I don't know if not that they didn't enjoy it the first time, but people were kind of shitting on him for it, and they were baby faces. It was a different dynamic. As heels, I think it could work, and both Becky and Rollins are heels now, so I think it could work. Speaking of the women's tag team match, or the women's division, we had Toni Storm and Liv Morgan beating Carmella and Zelina Vega by countout in a completely inconsequential match. The match went like literally 2 minutes. Of course, if you followed the reports in my review from last week, this was the match that we were supposed to get in MSG on the 20-year anniversary of on the eve of the 20-year anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, which Zelina Vega's father was killed in, and it would have been a great moment for him to be back in that building, for her to be back in that building wrestling. They cut the match. It's not a match I was overly anticipating. I didn't really give a shit about it here either, but not because of the talent involved, but because this creative team has nothing for these 4 women. They're really having to scratch and claw and come up with something for them to do. I mean, Liv Morgan and Carmella are having another match, apparently, the pay-per-view on Sunday, because Carmella and Vega got themselves counted out because Carmella thought she broke her nose. I'm thinking to myself, didn't Sheamus's storyline break his nose a couple of months ago when he's still wearing that dumb mask? Mandy Rose thought she broke her nose in NXT like a week or two ago. Like, did they watch their own fucking programming? Like, why would you pull this exact same angle you literally did a month or two ago? Or a week or two ago in the case of NXT? That's just laziness. The match was whatever. Toni Storm's a complete afterthought. But I guess we're getting Morgan and Carmella at the pay-per-view for anyone that really cares. And again, I like both of them, but we've seen the match a million times. They'll probably add a stipulation, but really, who cares? And by the way, if you look at Extreme Rules, not a single fucking match up until Friday SmackDown. I believe Roman and Balor is now an Extreme Rules match. What is the fucking point of doing Extreme Rules pay-per-view if only one match is a stipulation? I mean, we're at the point of where it's just high comedy of the lack of stipulation on these shows. I have seen Raws with more hardcore matches than this fucking show. What's the point? Sami Zayn beat Dominic Mysterio for a 3rd straight time. I thought I was watching a rerun here, but no, it was the same match. It was well wrestled while it lasted, but I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, we've seen this before. Can we move the fuck on with this? Rey's still kind of chastising Dominic for not getting the job done. Well, you're not a very good coach, Rey. They're teasing tension between the two. I assume Dominic's going to be the one to go heel. I'm still very skeptical of how good of a heel he's going to be, because he just doesn't seem like he's going to play the role well. Maybe he'll surprise me. But I am intrigued to see where it's going to go, if nothing else. We had the main event segment, a homecoming celebration for Bianca Belair, because they were in Knoxville, Tennessee on Friday. The timing of this was perfect. I don't know if they did this on purpose when they were mapping out the shows and where they would be, but it's Bianca's hometown. We're leading into Extreme Rules. They want to put heat on Becky, who's still a babyface as far as reactions go. And this worked. I mean, she got a decent amount of heat. I don't think she's going to be booed a long time still, but that's just my opinion. This was simple, short, sweet, straight to the point, like some of the other stuff on the show. Nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't a great segment and kind of paled in comparison to the recent verbal exchanges. But, you had Kane out there, the mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee. That was a great surprise. Cool to see Kane. Bianca got to soak in that adulation from the audience, which was nice. Becky comes out, spoils the party, lays her out, and that's it. So, not a strong segment, but it was solid. I thought it accomplished what it needed to do, and it got heat on Becky for whatever that's worth. So, I thought it was a fine segment. Overall, a very middle-of-the-road show compared to most SmackDowns. The main event segment was tame, but I thought it was well done. Zayn and Mysterio, been there, done that. The women's tag team match was a complete waste of time. They clearly do not know what to do with these women on the show beyond the title picture. And the Sonya and Naomi stuff is encouraging, but you got to follow up on it is the thing. The Rollins promo was great, albeit a bit long. Corbin and Owens was quick, straight to the point, whatever. Boogs and Roode, same thing, set up an Intercontinental title match for next week. And the opening segment was great, so that was the best part of the entire show to me. And like I said, next week on SmackDown, or I guess at this point, now that I'm recording on Monday, this coming Friday on SmackDown, it's going to be Cruz and Nakamura one more time for the Intercontinental Championship. And Liv Morgan gets a bit of a warm-up before the pay-per-view when she faces Zelina Vega in one-on-one action. So those are my thoughts on the September 17th, 2021 edition of SmackDown. Appreciate you guys checking on this review days later. So thank you for that. I will have a Talking Smack review up as well, so check that out. And it's going to be a busy week again here on the channel. We're going to have an interview up at some point. Still in the process. Again, that lockdown, but we got hashtag on Wednesdays, Wrestle Rant Radio excerpts on Thursdays. Dark Side of the Ring reviews are back here on the channel in addition to the Marvel What If reviews. Still a few of those left. SmackDown audio review should be back on Saturday this week, along with Talking Smack review on Sunday. So stay tuned for all that, guys. Have a great rest of your week. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to this channel for more daily content. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.